listened in some perplexity to the speech of David Mellon, and he seemed to be speaking in a kind of vacuum, as though the reason why we're here today has nothing to do with the United Kingdom government. This is not a bogus bill, and if there is a constitutional crisis looming, it comes about because something which was entirely predictable has happened because of the neglect of the United Kingdom government to take this process seriously. We've been waiting for 3 months for amendments to this EU withdrawal bill, and nothing has arrived until the last few hours. Of course, in these circumstances, the Welsh Government and indeed the Welsh Assembly must provide against the possibility that an LCM does not pass this Assembly, and there is then a legislative void. It would be absurd if it were to behave otherwise. We are an Assembly which is here to pass laws and to repeal them, not to allow legislative voids to come into existence. And Theresa May and her administration have, of course, achieved the most remarkable feat of uniting parties as diverse as Plaid Cymru on the one hand, the Labour Party and UKIP in this Assembly. And as the leader of Plaid Cymru pointed out a moment ago, this is not about remain or leave, because we come from the polar opposite in our views on the desirability of remaining within the European Union. And the last time that this was raised in the Assembly, just a week or two ago, both the leader of Plaid Cymru and I made the fundamental point that this is not just about the EU referendum, it is also about the two referenda which established devolution and brought this Assembly into existence. And my position has always been that referenda are to be respected, or the results of those referenda are to be respected, whether they refer to internal United Kingdom matters or indeed external. And it's respect for that process which goes to the very heart of what this bill is about. It is a bill about democracy, again, as the leader of Plaid Cymru said a moment ago. And the reason why overwhelmingly I've always been in favour of leaving the EU, indeed opposed going into it in the first place, was because the processes of legislation within the EU are democratically deficient. As a result of repatriating these processes to Westminster or to Cardiff or Edinburgh or to Belfast, the opinion of the people, as represented by those who are elected by them as proxies, will be fundamental to the creation of law or the repeal of law in future. The European Union, as it has developed, created a corpus of law which was immune from the democratic process. The European Court itself, in judgments going back as far as 1963, gave itself the power to override democratic processes. And in a case in 1970, the Internationale Handelsgesellschaft case, it gave itself the power even to override national constitutions, which has never been accepted by the German Constitutional Court or the Dutch, but which the European Court of Justice has always held to be fundamental to the internal workings of the EU. As a result of that, as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, whether it's a constitutional measure, which is what David Melding was concerned about, or whether it's any other form of legislation, then those who are elected to represent the people will be able to provide the scrutiny which presently cannot be applied to the laws which we have to observe, because they're made either by bureaucratic processes, because the European Commission has the sole right of legislative initiative in the European Union, or as a result of cases in the European Court of Justice which cannot be amended or repealed by any straightforward process. And therefore, as a result of the European Union withdrawal bill, we will be repatriating those powers to the parliaments of the United Kingdom, and by that I mean the devolved parliaments as well as the UK Parliament at Westminster. I see that as a wholly benign process. There are, of course, short-term constitutional difficulties that this process brings about, and Clause 11 of this bill is one of them. And the issue of Henry VIII clauses. I am prepared to accept for the short term that this clause is necessary in order to provide ourselves with the legislative certainty that we need for the future. But it is an undesirable principle to set generally, and I hope that there will be a sunset clause or something akin to it, which will ensure that this will not be perpetuated for longer than is necessary. The legislative task before us to consider or reconsider 44, 45 years of legislation is vast. That cannot be conducted in a meaningful way without these extraordinary powers. And over the course of many years ahead, we'll have the opportunity to repeal, amend as necessary. But I consider this to be a vitally necessary bill to protect the interests of the Welsh people as well as of the British people. I see no contradiction or conflict between the two, and I regret that the United Kingdom government has created a wholly unnecessary degree of friction in what otherwise I should have thought would have been regarded by most Conservatives as a wholly beneficial process of restoring democracy to the British people and the Welsh people.